Hello Pokemon trainers, welcome back to another Pokemon Scarlet and Violet Battle Stadium Singles video here on iStarly TV. Now in this video I'm going to talk about 5 Pokemon that I'm really excited for in the upcoming Regulation F rule set for Battle Stadium Singles. So these are 5 Pokemon that are going to be added to the format, new and old, and I'm extremely excited. So let's kind of just get right into it. I just want to start by saying that it's not in any particular order, although I think that some of these probably will be very good and will be very viable. Of course, some of them might not end up being as good as I'm expecting, but I just kind of wanted to talk about them in no particular order. And if this video does well, I might do another one because there's a lot of new Pokemon, or a lot of Pokemon that are new to Scarlet and Violet that I want to talk about for this format. So let's jump right in. The first Pokemon I want to talk about here is Raging Bolt. And as you can see here, unfortunately, there's not a little picture, but maybe I'll put one on the side here. Raging Bolt is a brand new Paradox Pokemon, Paradox form of Raikou, and it is an electric and dragon type. And these are a couple of sets that I have that I wanted to talk about. The stat distribution for Raging Bolt as an electric and dragon type is pretty decent. It's actually pretty solid. It has a massive HP stat, a massive special attack stat, and its defenses are also pretty good, especially on a dragon type. Like having that much HP and defenses that are that solid on an electric and dragon type, which is a pretty solid typing defensively, you're already off to a really good start, and add to that a really massive special attack stat. And this Pokemon honestly looks really promising. I think this Pokemon is going to be really strong. There's not too much to talk about with it though, because its move pool is pretty limited. As a special attacker, as you see, its attack stat is not amazing. As a special attacker, it has a signature move called Thunderclap, which is basically a electric type special sucker punch. So it's 70 base power. It only works if the opponent is going to attack you with an attacking move. However, it will always go first, and it's an electric type move. I think this is a great move for Raging Bolt because it's pretty slow. It's decently slow with 75 base speed. And then from there, obviously, you want the coverage, Thunderbolt and Dragon Pulse. You could try Draco Meteor as well, which we'll talk about in the other set. This is the Assault Vest set that I built for it. But there's a lot of options for this Pokemon as far as items are concerned, but I think Assault Vest is a really good one. And since it already has a really high HP stat, you can just go max special attack and max special defense and take special hits really, really well. I guess you could also go max defense and max special attack, just so that you're really well rounded and you can just take hits from a lot of things. And then I like Dragon Tail on this set as well because, you know, it can force switches. If you pair this with a Pokemon that has Stealth Rock, you can kind of, you know, throw the opponent around and make them take damage as you force them to switch out and stuff like that, which is pretty cool. And then as far as Terra type goes, I think there's a few options because as far as coverage, Raging Bolt doesn't have a lot of it. Like if you look at the special attacks it gets, a lot of them are either electric or dragon. It really doesn't get different type moves that are special attacks. And so you typically have to rely on, I mean, maybe Hyper Voice, which is not great, or Terra Blast, which means you would want a Terra type for this. Good Terra types for this Pokemon, I would assume, would be like, you know, moves that cover electric really well, or like Fairy is always a good Terra type, but electric and dragon is decent coverage together. So with that in mind, I've chosen electric as what I think will be the best Terra type for it, because obviously you further boost the power of your electric type moves, which is amazing. And also it removes the dragon weaknesses. It removes your weakness to dragon, ice, and fairy, which are decently common types. And it only makes you weak to ground. So I think Terra Electric actually looks really good on Raging Bolt. Again, this is my Assault Vest set. And then we'll talk about the other set that I like, which is Eject Pack. This one's running almost max HP, max special attack, a little bit of defense, and the main goal with this one is to go for Draco Meteor to do a ton of damage. And when you do that, Eject Pack will proc and it'll force you out. So you can get off a lot of damage with Draco Meteor against something, and then once your special attack drops, you will be switched out to something else so that you can come back in later and do a lot of damage. So I like this set. I think it's pretty fun. An additional item you can try is similarly White Herb, which will reset your stats when they drop. So basically, if you're holding the White Herb, I'm trying to find it. If you use Draco Meteor, your special attack will lower, and then White Herb will go away and it'll reset your special attack, so you can use Draco Meteor again. So that's pretty cool. Or you can use one of your electric moves. Once again, I like Terra Electric, but you can try different Terra types on this as well. You know, Ice pairs really well with Electric, but Terra Ice is a little rough because Ice is just such a bad defensive typing. And we have Volt Switch here. Yeah, pretty self-explanatory, I think. But I do think that Raging Bolt will be a fantastic Pokemon. Other items you can try, maybe Choice Scarf, maybe Choice Specs, maybe Citrus Berry, as well as Booster Energy is a good one as well. But typically I like Booster Energy on Pokemon where you can boost their speed. And I don't think there's ever a world where you can boost Raging Bolt's speed just because its speed is so much lower than its special attack. So I think these are the two sets I want to try out the most. The next Pokemon is Gouging Fire, which is the Paradox Entei, which is a Fire and Dragon type, which is awesome. This is another Pokemon that I'm super excited for. And let's talk about this one. So its stat distribution is also really good. It's really bulky. It's got decent speed, pretty balanced, I would say. It's very similar to Entei's stat distribution, I believe. And this is the set that I'm most excited to try on Gouging Fire. So with the booster energy, you'll have your speed boosted, because as you'll see here with my EVs, I make it so that speed is my highest stat. And the beautiful thing about this spread is that this actually, once you get the booster energy, will outspeed Dragapult, which is pretty much one of the fastest Pokemon in the meta. Unfortunately, you will not outspeed Booster Energy, Flutter Mane, or Iron Bundle. And that's kind of a common item on them, but if they don't have a booster energy, you will outspeed them. Also, once you set up a Dragon Dance after the booster energy, you're going to be faster than pretty much everything anyway. So yeah, that's why I like this EV spread. And it also gives us a lot of bulk as well. This is to avoid Stealth Rock damage, or rather to take less damage from Stealth Rock. And then you can just set up Dragon Dances. Morning Sun is great because it recovers some health. Obviously, as far as fire moves go, Flare Blitz is amazing, but it has the recoil, so you want to keep that in mind. There's a new fire move called Temporary Flare, which is a lot less powerful. It's 75 base power, but if you are really worried about the damage from Flare Blitz, you know, that's something you can try. And then finally, for Terra types, I like Terra Ground because it prevents you from being paralyzed. Obviously, as a fire type, you cannot be burned, so people are not going to use Will-O-Wisp against you. But if you Terra into a ground type, if you're expecting a Thunder Wave, then this is pretty good for you. And if you go Terra Ground, it's possible you could switch one of these three moves with Earthquake, or even Dragon Dance. You can switch any of these moves with Earthquake, to be quite honest. I like the ability to go Dragon Dance and have Morning Sun, but again, if you just want to go Dragon Dance with 3 attacks and Earthquake, maybe, never mind. I was gonna say maybe at that point you could kind of put more EVs into attack, but you actually cannot do that. I guess you could remove the 64, and then even, I guess you could even remove the HP if you want, and then just maybe go max speed and then put the rest in attack until your attack is 1 point lower than your speed, and then put the rest in like HP or something if you want to just hit a little harder. That's an option as well, just to play with the EVs. But this is the set that I'm probably going to try out first for this Pokemon. And then we have the Loaded Dice Scale Shot. I chose Terra Steel here with Iron Head, but of course Terra Ground is always a great option on this Pokemon, again, for the reasons outlined before. And this is just 4 attacks with Loaded Dice. Scale Shot, of course, will boost your speed and lower your defense. That's why I decided to go for just 4 attacks. I mean, you could go Dragon Dance as well, but I just kind of figured, like, if I'm going to be lowering my defense with Scale Shot, I kind of want to just do a lot of damage, like not really worry about setting up with Dragon Dance and stuff, just kind of use moves that are good against the opponent. I mean, Terra Steel's also really good against like fairies and stuff, but yeah, so this is another set that I like a lot for Gouging Fire, and this is another Pokemon that I love. And next at number 3, we have Iron Crown, which is yet another Paradox Pokemon. I promise it's the last Paradox Pokemon on this list. And Iron Crown, I have a few different sets here. Now, looking at its stat distribution, it's really interesting. It's really bulky with a pretty decent HP stat. It also has a high special attack, and its speed is also not that bad. And alongside the Steel and Psychic typing, this is looking like a pretty good Pokemon, surprisingly. It also has a signature move that's pretty great. 50 base power, it hits twice and ignores accuracy or evasion boosts, I guess. So it's effectively 100 base power and it hits twice, so that's great against Dragonite. As a steel type move, it's great against Flutter Mane and Qianpao. This is just a great Pokemon, honestly. The more I look at it, the stronger it looks. This first set, I opted to go for max HP, max defense with Calm Mind. You know, I don't know if this will be particularly great, but it's an option because it does get Calm Mind. These two moves are great. We'll talk about Psychic Noise here. It's a brand new move added with this DLC. And for 2 turns, it prevents the opponent from healing. So I think that includes items like Leftovers or Citrus Berry. It includes moves like Recover. It includes abilities that would heal them. It's just a really strong ability. Obviously, it's less powerful than Psychic and Psyshock, but for a Calm Mindset, if you're expecting your Iron Crown to be kind of on the battlefield for a little while against an opposing Pokemon, Psychic Noise could be a really strong move, so I think that's worth considering. And this is, again, my Calm Mindset. I also, for Terra types, a few options that I like are Fighting, Fire, or Ground. Basically anything that can allow you to hit Steel types, because otherwise you just don't have anything for Steel types. You do learn Focus Blast, but obviously it's Focus Blast. And then if you do go Terra Fighting, though, the problem is you have more trouble with Goldango, so keep that in mind. But this is a set I like. And then we have just purely offensive. You can go Choice Specs, you can go Choice Scarf, you can go Booster Energy. I mean, there's a lot of options here. I like this. And then same thing with the Terra type. And then this is the set that I'm most excited for. As you can tell, I really like my kind of bulky Booster Energy speed boost sets. So with these EVs, my speed is my highest stat. So with Booster Energy, I will get a speed boost. And then I put the rest in defense, just to give me more defense, obviously, because I'm figuring I'm going to start setting up Calm Minds, so that'll give me a really well-rounded defense to take hits from most everything. And then I went Terra Fire, again, for offensive purposes, but I have the same moves as before. Now, if you want, you can hit a little harder. You can just kind of put this into... I guess it's the same deal with Gouging Fire. If you wanted to put the EVs in special attack, you would have to take some of these and put them in speed first as well, just to make sure your speed stat is your highest stat. So yeah, I really like this set a lot. And I guess even if you have to switch out and come back in later, this speed stat's not the worst. Like, you do outspeed a couple of important Pokemon after that, like Dragonite unboosted and stuff. So yeah, Iron Crown looks great, and this is the set that I'm probably going to try out first with it, but all of these are good options. All right, number 2 or 4. It's either number 2 if we're counting down or number 4 if we're not counting down. But the next Pokemon we're talking about here is Blaziken. Blaziken is back. Unfortunately, we don't have Mega Blaziken, which is really sad, but Blaziken has always been a really good Pokemon in Battle Stadium singles, and I don't really expect that to change too much with this new season. So as you'll see here, let's start with this standard set that I'm talking about, because as you might notice, I have 2 main kind of EV spreads that I'm looking at with Blaziken, and so we'll just kind of talk about that. So this first one I'm calling Standard Cleaner. Like, basically the goal is to send this in later on in the battle and clean up the opponent's Pokemon, do a lot of damage, and, you know, sweep towards the end of the battle. You don't really want to send this in at the beginning, because one big Pokemon that's going to give you trouble is Dragonite, because you cannot hit Dragonite with these current moves. So you either need to add a move that can hit Dragonite, or you need to send out your Blaziken later on in the battle once the Dragonite has either fainted or terastallized. But I think this is a good place to start. Protect, Swords Dance, Close Combat, and Flare Blitz. It's a pretty tight moveset. Like, yeah, there's some flexibility. You could switch out some of these, but I mean, you really want as the most powerful stab that you have access to, and then Swords Dance is great. I think this is probably the most cuttable move. Like, you could switch this with something else. Protect also feels like a necessity though, because with this EV spread, you will outspeed Flutter Mane and Iron Bundle after Speed Boost, and Qianpao, unless of course Iron Bundle and Flutter Mane have Booster Energy. But if they do, you know, you might survive a hit from them, and then after another Speed Boost, you will outspeed them. So yeah, I like this set a lot. And then for Terra types, I mean, with Blaziken, there's so many options that, like, I'm telling you what the EV spread does, but with everything else, you can kind of tweak it the way you like. Like, Blaziken is just capable of just doing so many different things that there's a lot of options for it, and you can find a move or an EV combination or a Terra type that works best for you, and that's great, and you should do that. So it also has Thunder Punch for coverage if you want to try that. Does it have stone. It does have Stone Edge, but of course it's Stone Edge. In that case, if you want, you can go Terra Rock with Terra Blast. That's an option. It has Poison Jab. It has Knockoff. It has a lot of options. I just thought like these were like the kind of the most, the ones that I wanted to use the most for Blaziken. And then as far as Terra type, you could go offense with, you know, fire or fighting, or you could go defensive. Again, there's a lot of options. And then I chose Lumberry, but once again, there's so many options for item. You can go Focus Sash, and if you go Focus Sash, you might not really need Protect on it. So a lot of options. This next set, this is my other EV spread, and with this EV spread, we have Adamant Max Attack and just enough EVs to outspeed Pokemon like Ogerpon after a speed boost. So obviously we're going to be a little slower. It means we're not going to outspeed Fluttermane or Iron Bundle until we get several speed boosts, but outspeeding Pokemon like Ogerpon is still a pretty good place to start. And I went Terra Flying for this one with Brave Bird, because that's another option that Blaziken does have access to. And I went for the Sharp Beak, just to do a lot of damage. And Flying is also a pretty decent defensive Terra type because it negates the ground type moves that you would otherwise be weak to. So another thing to consider. Another kind of variation of that set is running the White Herb item with Close Combat and Acrobatics. So if you don't want to run too many moves that deal recoil damage, you can go Terra Flying. If you use Close Combat, then your White Herb will reset your stats. And then once it's done that, you don't have an item anymore, so Acrobatics will be at full power. And with the Terra Flying type, you're going to do a lot of damage. And Flying, Fighting, and Fire have really good coverage together. So this looks like a really promising set. Looks like a lot of fun to try out. The one downside is that your Acrobatics is only fully powered once you've used Close Combat. So if you don't really have a window where you can use Close Combat, it ends up being pretty awkward. But you know, Close Combat's a great move. I feel like you're going to use it in a lot of situations. And then the last two sets, this one here is purely special. You know, if you want to try it out, you can try a different Terra type and stuff like that. I don't think this is quite as strong. It's definitely not as strong as Physical, but you know, if Blaziken ends up being a really commonly used Pokemon and everyone's expecting it to be Physical, and then you surprise them with some special attacks, that could be valuable, but overall, I don't really think this set is going to be as strong. And then finally, Mixed Blaziken is another one that has potential. Basically, you're looking like a physical attacker, and then they might send in a special wall against you, and you can click something like Overheat and do a lot of damage, or like Terra Electric and click Terra Blast or something. I don't know. I guess if you do that, though, the Terra Blast will be physical, not special, but I don't know. This is just another EV spread that I wanted to try out, but I think these two EV spreads are the main ones to focus on, and then like I said, as far as Terra type, move, item, there's a lot of options. Finally, we have possibly the king of the returning Pokemon in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet Indigo Disk DLC, and that is Porygon 2. It looks really unassuming. I love this Pokemon, by the way, but if you've played a lot of Battle Stadium singles in previous generations, you know that this is like one of the best Pokemon in Battle Stadium singles, even though it does not look like it, right? The thing about Porygon 2 is looking at its stats, like its stats are also not that amazing, but it has access to the Eviolite item, or Eviolite, however you want to say that, as well as Recover. And with these pretty decent defenses and the Eviolite, it ends up being a really tanky Pokemon. It can tank hits from a lot of things. Also, being a pure normal type is pretty great. It only has one weakness, right? And I'm not sure, like with all these Pokemon that are returning, you know, you can use examples of previous generations and be like, oh, it was amazing last generation, but then who knows if it'll be good this gen. Like Pokemon like Zapdos and Landorus are good examples of that, where they're not really as commonly used this generation. And so I'm wondering if that's going to be the case with Porygon 2, but also like it just looks so good. And with Terastallizing, I think it's just going to be even better. So this is a standard set for Porygon 2, 244 HP, and then max either defense or special defense. You could go either way with this Pokemon. If you need a Pokemon that can tank physical hits better, You can go max special defense, or I'm sorry, max physical defense. If you need a Pokemon that can tank special hits better, go max special defense. There's so many options with that. I went 4-4-4, but also you could just go like 12 in any of these stats. You know, again, there's a lot of flexibility with this Pokemon. If you want to run a mixed wall, you can do some calcs and run, you know, some EVs in defense, some in special defense. Again, there's so many options with this Pokemon. I just wanted to start with this just to look at the standard EV spread. And I would say this is the standard move set. Recover, Foul Play, Ice Beam, and Discharge. These two moves cover each other really well, Ice and Electric. You could go Thunderbolt for more damage, but Discharge with the higher chance of paralyzing is pretty good. Foul Play is good against physical attackers that set up. However, this gen, honestly, one move that I like, well, Tri-Attack has been used in the past, it's really good. Shadow Ball is great against something like Fluttermane, but one move that I think is going to be amazing on it is actually Terra Blast, because even if you don't Terrastalize, it's still as powerful as Tri-Attack, which is great. And then when you do Terrastalize, then you have another move for coverage. So you go Terra Fairy. I think Terra Fairy is going to be great on Porygon 2 because Fairy is a great defensive type. You can go Terra Steel. You could go Terra Water. Although if you go Terra Water, I don't know if I would have Terra Blast because it's kind of redundant with Ice Beam. But this Pokemon is just amazing, right? Like, I don't know what else to say about it. So I just wanted to talk about the standard EVs and then the moves that I like. I personally am going to start with something like this first. And then maybe Terra Fairy, I might change the Terra type, but I do think Terra Fairy is a pretty good place to start. And then, you know, there's so many different options. Also, we should talk about the abilities. There's Trace, Download, and Analytic. All three of these are amazing. Like, they do what they say, and they're all great. Like, it's almost like you can't go wrong with these moves. I guess there are some cases where you run Trick Room on Porygon 2, so if you're running Trick Room, you don't want Analytic. Also, with Trace, I would say if you're going for a special defense Porygon 2, something like this, then I would say you don't want Trace, because two of the most common special attackers that are really strong are Iron Bundle and Fluttermane, and I don't think you can trace Protosynthesis. Well, if you do trace Protosynthesis, I don't think it's going to really matter unless they have Sun on their team or you have Sun on your team. So if you're running Trace, if you're running Special Defense, you might not want Trace. However, another Special Defense Pokemon is Goldango, and Good as Gold is an amazing ability. So I don't know. Basically, like I said, you almost can't go wrong with your ability. Just kind of roll the dice or choose which one you want the most, and you're good to go. And again, the only thing to think about is if you have Trick Room, then you do not want Analytic. Aside from that, every other combination of ability is fantastic. These are other moves that Porygon 2 has. You know, I've talked about some of them, but Shadow Ball's an option. Electro Web, it lowers their speed. It's basically the electric version of Icy Wind. Either of those is decent, but honestly, just use Discharge, because if you paralyze them, that's even better, and Discharge does way more damage. And then a few other moves, Trick Room, like I talked about, which is a good option that I've seen people run. And then Eerie Impulse lowers special attack, so that's another option if you want. Thunder Wave's also good, but honestly, this is probably just where you want to be. Like, maybe that Terra Blast could be a different move if you want, but Recover, Ice Beam, Discharge, kind of just can't go wrong with that. So Porygon 2 is amazing. And with those are the 5 Pokemon I'm most excited for. I know this video is kind of long, but I'll put the timestamps when I'm talking about each one. Let me know in the comments which of these Pokemon you are most excited for to play in Battle Stadium Singles. I'm excited for every single one. I'm going to try all of them out at some point. I do think I'll just spoil this for you. I do think the first team I'm going to build and show a video of, I believe, is going to have Gouging Fire on it. It might have 1 or 2 of these other Pokemon, but it'll definitely be Gouging Fire because I'm really excited to try that one. It'll probably have Porygon 2 just because it looks so good. But anyways, thank you very much for watching. Please leave a like and subscribe for more Pokemon Scarlet and Violet videos, and hope you have a great day. See you soon.